Wano for me has been absolutely incredible so far, and I genuinely believe it has the chance to be the greatest arc in One Piece. And in the manga, it's only getting better and crazier, but we have to talk about how Oda's biggest flaw impacted what happened in the most recent chapter. What's good, everybody? My name is Zach. Welcome back to the channel. First off, I'm sorry I haven't been too active recently. It's been a minute since I posted, but I really just needed some time to chill out and get a mental reset. But now we're back on the grind, and in this video, we'll be talking about those supposed deaths in the most recent chapter. Not just whether or not they're dead or not, but more importantly, how Oda's track record of handling deaths really impacted how people reacted. And also the worst possible outcome that I think could really tarnish where Wano ranks as an arc. But before we get into that, I gotta talk about the King Pirates crew, which is over 33,800 members now. If you're new to the crew, make sure to say hi in the comments. And if you're not yet part of the crew, hit that subscribe button and join us on this adventure. But let's talk about what happened in the last chapter, because the last two chapters have been incredible. In 1013, we see Luffy loses again as he falls off of Onigashima, and then in the last chapter, we seemingly see 3 different people die all in one chapter. We start off with Kiku versus Kanjuro, where Kiku gets soft-hearted again and gets stabbed right through the chest by Kanjuro. This leads to Kinemon versus Kanjuro, which leads to Kanjuro's death, and right after that, Kaido comes crashing in and Kinemon takes a straight-on attack from Kaido as Momo runs away. Now for me, for those of you that caught my live reaction, I was actually really invested into these moments. Kiku, no, Kiku, it's not Oden. God, oh no, Kiku. And you're a perfect fit for that role. After all, I was performing on stage. You were my best friend. Damn. Shinobu, take a moment. No. I'm not gonna scroll down yet. Don't tell me Kinemon's gonna die here. Did he just get decapitated? I honestly thought all 3 of those moments were pretty well written, and even though so many things happened so quickly, I really did feel connected to these characters and pretty impacted by these moments. Now the Scabbards in general, I do feel like they could have been more developed, but for the 3 people that supposedly died, I do feel like Oda set up their deaths pretty well. Starting with Kiku, originally I was really curious why Oda was really pushing this Kiku versus Kanjuro battle, and then of course it turns out it was just to set up this death by Kiku. But that does go to show that Oda definitely had this death planned, because not only does it make sense when you look at Kiku's inspiration in Japanese folklore, but also when you look at how Kiku's story has been really fleshed out, it kind of built up to this moment being impactful. In One Piece chapter 1013, we got that very quick moment between Kiku and Izo, and although I wish we got more out of that, we did still get that moment to kind of flesh out their relationship a little more. And it's kind of a sad story when you think about it. These 2 siblings that have been separated for 20 years finally reunited, but now separated again. Beyond that, you have Kiku's death itself at the hands of Oden, which is very sad, but I think the most important part of that moment was the fact that Kinemon watched Kiku die. Kinemon and Kiku are definitely 2 of the Scabbards that have had one of the more established relationships. We got to see that they're pretty close in the present story, but also in the Oden flashback, they had like this big brother, little sister kind of vibe. And even in the most recent Viva card, Oda kind of hinted at it even more, and there were even some hints that maybe Kiku had feelings for Kinemon. But even putting the romantic stuff aside, they do still have a very strong relationship. So for me, that moment of Kiku dying in Kinemon's hands, that was pretty well set up. And of course, that sets up Kinemon versus Kanjuro, which was another fight I thought was pretty good. I feel like most people saw this coming. Kinemon versus Kanjuro, this had to happen. If Kanjuro was gonna get taken out, it had to be at the hands of Kinemon, who he's been the closest to. These are the 2 Scabbards we've been with the longest. They're always together. The reason we go to Kanjuro in the first place is because of Kinemon. So for Kanjuro, as he says himself, it's a fitting end to his life. It also created a pretty impactful moment for not only Kinemon but also Kanjuro. As he's dying, he's actually thinking back to all those moments he had with Kinemon and is actually crying. And I think that was the perfect way to do it. It doesn't completely redeem him, but it does show that he was human. And honestly, I think Kanjuro's story as a whole got much better when he became a villain. He served his role as a villain and got a fitting end at the hands of Kinemon. Now finally, for Kinemon's death, I think this is the one I'm least certain about. Although it was definitely an impactful moment with Momo seeing Kinemon die, with Kinemon being one of the more prominent characters in Wano, there's definitely potential that his story can keep going. But I can also totally see a scenario where he is dead. Him dying at the hands of Kaido protecting Momonosuke as his last act, I think it's a fitting end to his story as well. Momo seeing his death is also very important because these 2 have a very close relationship. For a large part of the story, we thought they were genuinely father and son. And out of all the Scabbards, Kinemon is definitely the one Momo feels the closest to. So if this is the end for Kinemon, Kinemon, I feel like it was pretty impactful as well. And there's a lot of potential for it to be more impactful if Kaido decides to bring his dead body to show everybody. Zoro seeing that would be a big moment. He's inherited Kinemon's style with Foxfire style. Sanji and Kinemon had a pretty strong relationship in Punk Hazard as well. And then of course Luffy, eventually when he finds out, that will be a very big moment as well. So for me personally, all of the supposed deaths in the last chapter, I was invested to and I felt they were very well written. But I think I'm actually in the minority here because a lot of people didn't feel that connected to those deaths. And it's not so much that those scenes were poorly written, it's more so Oda's track record. Because of how Oda has handled death in the story, nobody believes he's gonna kill anybody anymore. And honestly, even though those moments hit for me, I'm not completely sure they're all dead. Like realistically, Kiku, Kinemon, Kandro, and even Ashura Doji should be all dead. Not only because of the attacks that they took, but also how the story was written. And this is easily Oda's biggest flaw in his story. Pound was the most recent example. But I think to this day, the most indefensible thing that Oda did was keeping Pell alive. At least from a story perspective, if we're not considering outside influence or anything like that. But either way, Oda has had a track record of not killing people off, the Will of P, and as we're seeing right now, it's really catching up to him. People are not reacting as they should, even when he's trying to kill people off. But although this is a current issue, when the arc finishes and all these people are actually dead, it's not really gonna matter that much. When Wano finally finishes and we could look at the arc as a whole and these deaths actually happen, we could appreciate those deaths for what they are, even though we might not have in the moment. But if our fears come true and all of these people are somehow still alive, that's really gonna bring Wano down. Like Kinemon is really the only one I feel like Oda could get away with, but the other three, I feel like they should be dead. Kiku and Kandro, as far as I'm concerned, their stories are perfectly wrapped up. Neither of them, in my opinion, have a big role in the future of the story, so if you bring them back for just minor reasons, it's gonna end up hurting their story. Ashura Doji as well, I feel like he had a fitting end to his story. It's a pretty tragic story, but that's something that really adds to the stakes of this arc. He's also a person that's based off a Japanese folklore of somebody that's died, so I think for Ashura Doji, we don't really need him to come back and do anything. And honestly, even with Kinemon, I feel like if you really wanted to make an impact, you keep him dead as well. Because that's the scabbard we're most connected to, and if you really bring him out and use him to like get reactions out of Zoro, Sanji, and Luffy, those are gonna hit even harder. And if you think about the possibility that his wife might be dead already with Okebore Town, or the fact that she's maybe alive and they just never get to reunite again, that's also pretty damn sad. So I honestly believe all four of these deaths are very fitting as they are already, and if somehow Oda decides all these people are still alive and they just come back into the story, I don't think Wano's gonna stack up to Enies Lobby and Marineford as the top two arcs in the story. In terms of like a general consensus, Enies Lobby and Marineford are probably the two most popular arcs in One Piece, and there's a lot of great things about each of those arcs, but both those arcs had stakes. Marineford definitely had more with Ace and Whitebeard dying, but even Enies Lobby was capped off with the Going Merry's death. So if we somehow walk away from Wano with only Yasuye's death, I don't think that's gonna be enough. Because to me right now, these deaths feel like a turning point, the stakes are being taken to another level, and if at the end of it, these people all just come back alive, we're gonna look at the arc and just not see it as impactful. And more importantly, people are just gonna lose more trust in Oda and how he handles these deaths. So honestly, how Oda handles these deaths and any future deaths could really make or break Wano. And although Oda's track record is not giving him any benefit of the doubt, I do think there's hope that he actually pulls the trigger. Because at the end of the day, Oda still killed Ace and Whitebeard and gave us some really impactful moments that had high stakes. And even post time skip, he's killed a good amount of characters: Virgo, Monet, Pedro, Yasuye. If any of those people come back, I'm gonna look real stupid. But yeah, post time skip, Oda wasn't holding back for a while. It was really Pound that lost our trust. But maybe this time around, Pound is more so the exception as opposed to the norm, and Oda actually ends up pulling the trigger on all of these deaths. Because at the end of the day, when you look at the story, it would make sense if all these people are dead. Not only were these well-written moments, but there was a lot of foreshadowing as well. Of course, there's the folklores, but also there was this moment back in the Oden flashback where you had this panel of Oden, Kinemon, Kiku, Inarashi, and Ashura Doji all blacked out. Also, when the raid was just beginning, Kinemon dropped a death flag for himself saying that he's about to die, and then once again you had Ashura Doji, Inarashi, and Kiku saying that they'll die along with him. So besides all the folklore tie-ins and all these little death flags, there's been subtle foreshadowings of this as well. That's why I'm personally hopeful that the majority of these people are dead and we could look back at those moments and they will still be impactful. But that's it for this video. Thank you guys for watching. Check out this video right here where I talk about Momo potentially being an ancient weapon, which could be very relevant in the recent chapter. But I'll catch you guys next time. Peace!